what's seen as socializing, side talk in a different culture is actually the real character and personality test here. Being a familiar, credible, recommended name before we talk business. Call it the unwritten rulebook of doing business. I mean, even the soft cues, the one that don't break the law but break the deals. Legally speaking, it's correct. Absolutely nothing wrong. But culturally and reputationally, it's damaging on the longer term. But they lost so much with that. They lost the opportunity to be part of this ecosystem, again, that worked perfectly well in another part of the world. That just kills everything. So one of the common mistakes that we get to see is...
Welcome to Gold Standard Time with me, Richard, bringing you stories of innovation, reinvention, and self-development from the Middle East and from right here in the capital of ambition, Dubai. My goal is to inspire and challenge anyone that's dreaming, doing, and pushing for more. So let's get into it.
So my guest today is Taqua Malik, an Arabic cultural intelligence advisor and founder of Freedom Advisory. She helps global leaders, brands, and founders understand the nuances that truly matter in the GCC. From language and luxury to trust, hospitality, and the unspoken rules of doing business. And as the Middle East becomes a global center of investment, technology, and people, Taqua's work sits at the heart of what it takes to succeed here. So welcome to a very special guest, Taqua.
Thank you so much, Richard. What a pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So I usually find it more polite for my guests to introduce themselves. So how would you introduce yourself?
I would introduce myself by my story, the origin of all of this. It's all linked to how I lived my life, been in this very dynamic part of the world since birth, seeing everything happening, the transformation, the change, the drive to excel. And I've been a part of that through my very own experience that did put me in both ends of the equation. And what I'm trying to do here, and I'm taking this as my purposeful mission, is to add that layer of native understanding from someone who's lived it, seen it, had been through everything that happened throughout the past few decades, and add it in a strategic way as a value to the businesses, the founders, the families who are coming here, for them to blend in and make the best of their presence in the conversation.
Thank you. And what is your background, your connection to this part of the world? Can you just give us a bit of an understanding of your upbringing and your connection to this part of the world?
It's everything. It's my being. It's my identity. I come originally from Sudan, but since birth, like an entire generation who had their parents working here, building, teaching, being a very fundamental part of the society. So did my parents as well. So I've been there in Riyadh. And it's been an amazing, joyful, very family-oriented life for over 2 decades, over 20 years. We've seen so much happening. The school, the upbringing, our friends, the life, which was very different back then. But it gave me the Arabic language, the Arabic culture, the Arabic mentality of life in its purest form. That's something I've carried with me throughout the years because it's the origin. It's what defines me as a person who's natively from this part of the world, speaks the language as a native speaker, and understands everything from the roots. And you can apply that to the all aspects of life. Dubai has been a paradigm shift for me. arriving here in 2009, Dubai wasn't the Dubai we know now. But the difference was quite noticeable to me, and it took me to what I like to call a journey of self-discovery. I'm a person who used to operate within very defined boundaries, lines, principles and foundations, while being here was my opportunity to learn, to adjust, to adapt, to be flexible, and to be open to have wider understanding and accept and tolerate and allow room for differences, for contrast, for everything that I'm not used to, that it's not wrong, it's just different.
And how was Dubai different back then versus now? What were the key shifts that you've seen?
Back then, in 2009, it was the beginning of the real boom that we're seeing right now. I remember witnessing the grand opening of Burj Khalifa, the launch of Dubai Metro. It was starting to get busier and busier, slightly after the recovery from the economic crisis that happened before that, 2007, 2008. So it was a time where I was able to see Dubai as it is, with everything that it's promising the world to be, with everything that became the fulfilled vision throughout the years. And it was beautiful to see everything shifting from a plan to an actual achievement. And that came, of course, on a personal level, with me being also to be able to adjust from one sitting of doing life and business to a global sitting that could have players from across the globe, across the world. For a reason that I think I'm uncovering now fairly recently, though I come from a very Arabic upbringing, life had put me to work for over 15 years in Western law firms, all the time within Western teams, serving non-Arabic speaking clients, taking charge of laws, information, knowledge management, documentation, everything that put me to utilize the skill that I'm always grateful to have, which is the ability to understand the world in Arabic and English.
How is that different? Because you speak about that quite a lot. And someone that hears you say that may immediately think, oh, two different languages. But you've spoken before and you've written a lot about seeing the world through an Arabic lens and an English lens or Western lens. Now, many people see those as just being languages, but can you unpack what that actually means from a experiential perspective?
Absolutely. Great question. When I talk about that, I don't specifically limit it to the language, because the language is a part of this, not the whole, not the whole image. When I say from an Arabic lens and a non-Arabic lens, I here mean the language, the most obvious factor, the culture, the way how nuances are formed, the impact and the very cohesive relation the culture has with the religion, and where does business fit among all of that. A lot of factors are included here, so it's a bit of an incomplete view if I would just limit it to the language. And this is something that till date, actually till today, I see it happening, especially with marketing, advertising, billboards. It's just limited to the language. But everything else is disconnected.
Okay.
A lot of things haven't been taken into consideration, and you are dealing with an audience that is very much known of taking great pride, and this is something has been happening for quite long time. It is happening now and will continue to happen to maintain the Arabic culture, the Arabic identity, the Arabic presence, because it's home. So for someone to see a part of that and not consider the rest, it's something that should be looked into to be corrected.
What are some of the key things that people get wrong about Arabic, maybe Arabian, Middle Eastern culture? And it's funny because those three phrases even mean completely different things, right? And the reason I ask that is because the entire world is looking at this region at this point in time. Many people from many parts of the world are moving here. To many people, this is sort of the place to be. And there's an amazing gravitational pull to this part of the world. Decades ago, when I was in school, I remember people were speaking about learning Mandarin, right? We used to learn French, Spanish, Italian, and in the UK, where I was born and raised, Mandarin then became something that people learned in school because China was on the rise, and it was said that in the next few decades, learning Mandarin is something that's going to set you apart. Nowadays, I would say that understanding Middle Eastern culture is the equivalent of that, right? Many people, and that's sort of the idea of Gulf Standard Time, this idea that over the next couple of decades, there is this sort of period of time in history where the Middle East is going to be a main stage and a major player in many global events, the global economy, and many connected ideas. And so I say all that to say, understanding Middle Eastern culture right now is, I think, one of the most important things that somebody can do if they want to see certain levels of success in the next couple of decades. So a very long question, but please help us to understand why is it, or please help us to understand what is it that people are still getting wrong about this part of the world.
First things first, congratulations on the podcast name.
Oh, thank you.
Very creative. Well done on that. The Middle Eastern, or I would rather say the Arabic culture and business. Simply put, because this part of the globe has a very strong foundation that is built on the society, the group, the tribe, the community, the we rather than the I. That, when reflected on the culture and business, where I try here to help to unpack, is something that is inseparable, but can be a bit difficult and challenging for an outsider to read, because it's, as we say, communicated in a higher context. It's not direct, it's not clear, it's not always said and defined in a word or two. It would depend very much on the context, who would say it, where, when. A phrase could bear multiple meanings, and that in business comes with a considerable risk, because it's a silent risk that could lead to losing a deal, a contract, an opportunity in silence. It's what I call it the unwritten rulebook of doing business, because we have the written rulebook, which is the law, the legal system for each and every country. If I would focus on the GCC, as you said, being an area that is seeing a lot, so much is happening, and with full awareness of how it was, because I was part of that time, I lived it, how the world perceived it, the economy that was very much oil dependent, now to everything being diversified, global, racing against time to shape, define, and strategize the future as they want to be. In the heart of all of that comes the culture, comes the identity, comes the original story, comes the roots of this. So if someone who hasn't been here long enough, I don't expect them to know this, but it will have an impact in a way or another on the way they are going to continue doing life here, going to expand their business to be here, going to have a successful growth.
And what is in that unwritten rule book? Let's unpack that and look at it.
Yeah, so if we're going to put this into a context of a business environment, this exactly means entering the region to belong, to be here for the longer term, for the bigger win, to be part of the strategy that the country has set for itself, like Vision 2030 in Saudi, Dubai digital economy, everything that is happening, and it's quite eventful now, is softly directing the attention that this is what we are doing. This is the agenda. This is the strategy. This is the cultural factor to it, to an extent that there are no legal provisions that does include the cultural norms, cues within that. But what are they? Someone might do something, and I'm not talking here about the things that could go obvious, like going in an offensive way against a religious principle, or anything that would clearly violate the cultural fabric. I mean, even the soft cues, the one that don't break the law but break the deals, the one that would make the team members feel we don't belong here. Conflicts start to happen in silence. Work is being affected. Why? Because something is off. Something is wrong. What is it? It's the culture of the place. I am aware, and I've been part of those experiences where a certain way of doing business or delivering a job has to be there. And deep in my heart, I didn't really accept it because I felt that there is something missing. There is something that doesn't acknowledge some of the basic things that should happen. Why no one thought of this?
And what are some of the things that foreigners or outsiders do that make you know that they completely misunderstand the region?
If I'm going to talk on the level of a decision maker who's trying to come and accomplish something big, get a contract signed, or have a partnership, one scenario that I see repeating again and again and again is to set a defined time, planning that on this day we're going to have a meeting with the head of this, next day we're going to have a meeting with the head of that, then we will have dinner together the week after we're signing. Things don't go by this plan. Frustration happens. It's slow. We don't know what's going on. We can't understand. It's just not working. Let's try somewhere else. It happens in different forms, but in essence, this is a very common story.
And what's being misunderstood there? Is it the fact that things move slower here? Because some people say that they move slower here than in the West. Some people say that they actually move faster. Is it the fact that things happen but in a less structured way in the Middle East? Like, what, in the scenario that you just painted, what is the mismatch between maybe a Western understanding of business and the Middle Eastern understanding?
So from a Western perspective, it's all about a problem and a solution that meets the criteria the owner of the problem has, and we're in business. You're solving my problem, it's within my budget, and it gets me the result that I want. Good, ready to go. Over here, there is that very important principle of building the relationship, building the trust, being a familiar, credible, recommended name before we talk business. What's seen as socializing, side talk in a different culture is actually the real character and personality test here. Because when I see you in a relaxed sitting where we get to eat together and have coffee and tea and talk about life, what's going on, the events happening, I get to see more of your character rather than more of your strategic business mind, because you are in a different circle now that allows you to be more you, so I can get to know you. It's that layer of identification that gets missed most of the time, in expectation that things go slow and wrong because of that. That this is not important, this is after, not before, while actually it's very important to establish in the beginning.
So I've read recently that I think, and I don't want to get the number wrong, I think 240,000 Brits currently live in the UAE. I hope I got that right. And more are on their way. I think about 100,000 people moved here last year. And a good chunk of that, just to talk about British people, because I am one, a good chunk of that are Brits. The more people move here from the UK, the US, Europe, other parts of the world, wouldn't you say that the culture here is changing? If there are more decision makers here from the West, the things that you've just outlined, do they matter less over time? Like, how do you see the actual business environment in the Middle East changing as there's an influx of people from around the world?
So number one, a very warm welcome to anyone who would like to come and explore a safe, beautiful, progressive life over here. I say this because I think I've been here long enough to safely say it's home. So that's first. The very important question you asked, and practically speaking, absolutely there will be a visible and a tangible effect to this. And it's actually happening now. The number of businesses and people who are coming in is quite significant, and it's only getting higher. That said, you may notice, Richard, that with the large number of people are coming in, finding it very welcoming, and them attracting each other, which is wonderful, there is a soft definition of the culture that vary in, let's say, the level of visibility from one part of the country or one part of the GCC or the Middle East and the other. Dubai, quite cosmopolitan, full of different nationalities, and everyone is living in peace and harmony, and it's only getting bigger and better. If you go to other parts of the country, if you go to the neighboring nations, Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, you see more of the Arabic culture clearer, more visible. Why? Because it's the economic scene that defines the level of flexibility, but it's never to be omitted or cancelled or withdrawn. Actually, not sure if you've got a chance to look into the recent laws that pertain to that, but the Arabic language is now mandatory in schools.
Yes,
It's going
I've
to be
seen it.
mandatory in schools. The number of local festivities is increasing very much, not on the contrary, and in different parts of the country. And the same is applying to all other neighboring countries, because this is where it exactly manifests. That this is a very welcoming place because it's part of the foundational understanding. It's in the DNA.
Why is it so welcoming?
Number one, it's how the Arabic culture is defined and formed, and one of its principal foundations, to be hospitable, to be generous, to give your guest the safety, the shelter, the food, everything they need until they feel safe. So
And
it's
how does
deeply rooted in the DNA. So you see it reflected on everything on a bigger scale.
Like, how is it that the welcoming nature of the Arabic culture has been able to be reflected so strongly on both a micro and a macro level? Because for a region, and I guess more for the UAE, more for Dubai, where the local populace is so small compared to the expat population, it's almost, even if, you know, the local population were welcoming, there's almost not enough of them for them to show that. But that still hasn't stopped that from being the case. So it's just on so many levels and from so many different angles that you look at it, like, why is it? Because it seems unlikely, but it's still the case that people come here on holiday or to live here and they feel welcome, even if you don't necessarily come into contact with local Emiratis or Saudis or Omanis every day, you will still feel that welcome. So how is that the case on such a large scale?
If we're looking into this from a macro scale, as this culture of being welcoming and spreading that beautiful welcoming feeling with the ultimate safety is something that has to descend from the top to the bottom. It is a principle that has been established, adopted, and applied by the highest levels, the ruling government, descending to the government authorities, to the other entities, throughout the society, and everywhere in between. That definitely is going to be seen and felt on a micro level. The scenario that you just shared of people coming in for a short holiday and then they like the place and decide to come again, or possibly extend the stay for years to come, is something that is, we get to hear the story time and time again. And it just tells that they're feeling safe, they're feeling home, and some of them being here for like decades, and then extended family even. Everyone has made the move. We're gonna come here, even when it's hot and humid in summer. But everyone is finding a place for them, and in one way or another. But to put everything within context, it's not just the local presence of Emiratis, as you rightly said. It could be not as large enough to see this, but in contrary, we see it everywhere we go. And that's a fact. The same applies to whoever find themselves in front of a family, a business, or an entity that would want to come and have a place for it. Then it's our job to make you feel welcome, because it's who we are. It comes as part of the composition of the cultural matrix and fabric. That's been fortified by how this has been applied on the highest levels, descending into be something that is the norm within the community or within the society.
Yeah.
Even the stamp at the airport when there is a certain occasion that is happening, the festivities that are going on, people are enjoying their life here as long as they do not cross the boundaries of law, which is such a large space for
And
them.
it is very important, and I think you quite rightly say, from His Royal Highness the Sheikh to the Crown Prince and to the entire royal family, that is a message that you see spoken about. And even, for example, from a religious perspective, right? So I'm not Muslim, I'm Christian, but I've read about the religious freedoms in the UAE. And if you actually read the wording of the statutes and of the laws, they're very wide-ranging, right? They're very strong in their desire for everyone to be able to follow whichever faith or religion they want to follow. And that's something that in other parts of the world, many people wouldn't expect or attribute to happening here because it's so strongly Islamic. A lot of people would maybe think, oh, can you have a church here? Can you be a Christian here freely? Can you do this? Can you do that? In other religions, but it's so, I think that's one of the things that I've noticed coming here, that it's just very open, very welcoming in every way. And from a business perspective, how do you define, because you are a cultural intelligence advisor, how do you define cultural intelligence to leaders, to teams, to the companies that you advise?
I'll first comment to the first bit, the religious freedoms. I think this is one of the strongest factors why people would feel happy and safe to choose this place as a home, second home, or rather first for some of them. Because when you want to extend the sense of safety and inclusion, that is something you do, and to be controlled within defined boundaries of law. But within that, there is the freedom to practice your own religion. There is the freedom to celebrate, to have the life you chose for yourself, as long as you're not violating any legal provision or not harming anyone else. But away from that, it's absolutely open and free. And now we are at a time of the year that is the busiest, whereas we're heading to the New Year's Eve, December 31st, a day a lot of people look forward to celebrating differently in several parts of the world. But there's that beauty and attention and attraction to having it here in 2026 that just tells how big of a job that has been done and what is the future is going to be looking like. So it's always heading positively towards the growth. The second bit of your question, the cultural advisory, it is how I support businesses, mainly the decision makers, to ensure that, number one, the business, whether it's the marketing plan, the branding, the imagery, the wording, does not contradict with any cultural nuance.
Is that common?
Yes.
And is it easy to happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much.
Can you give us some examples of how just looking at a business plan or a logo or a slogan or some sort of document and translating that into Arabic and making it a little bit Middle Eastern isn't the right way to go?
So one of the common mistakes that we get to see is having a playbook or a business plan that worked perfectly well in another part of the world to be translated and okay, ticked, ready to go. That just kills everything, because translation does not carry the spirit, the essence, and the cultural warmth that localization does.
What's localization?
Localization is transforming, not just translating, transforming the meaning of a phrase or a sentence with its essence, to put it into a form that is relatable and correct linguistically, culturally, and meaningfully. So it's not just word for word, like what would happen most of the time. An entire sentence could be reflected when localized into one word, and vice versa. That's localization, and it relates way stronger because it's very easy to be identified. Like good localization, it just shows itself. When I read that word, I said, there has been some thought behind that. This is so meaningful. It comes to you with the feeling of it, with the meaning. And you can tell that they invested in making you notice how good the copy is. For example, if you're looking into copy, that it actually moves your emotions. This is something I relate to. I like that. I want to know more.
Can we do this live? So my the slogan for this podcast is stories from the capital of ambition. What is the direct translation of that in Arabic?
So the direct translation is قصص من عاصمة الطموح. Stories from the capital of ambition.
Okay.
That's the literal translation. قصص from من عاصمة الطموح, which is meaningful on its own.
Okay. And if you were to localize it, what would you change?
Oh,
Does it change a lot?
no, not much.
Okay.
I would say قصص طموحة, or قصص من قلب الطموح, أو قصص لقلب الطموح, قصص لعاصمة الطموح, قصص من روح الطموح. Something that would put me in a sense to think that these are not just stories, but these are actually ambitions that have been inspired by this place to continue the ambition into an achievement. Yeah. I think this is the best way to like transform them, because it's quite powerful in English and it's very clear. It could be more of a clear thing in Arabic.
No, because initially you said the translation compared to localization wouldn't be that different. But as the person that came up with it, what you've actually said in Arabic brings out the intention, my intention, actually more than in English. Because the idea of the podcast really is that the way that, and you quite rightly said, the way that the plan of the Middle East has been created and then actually executed upon is very ambitious and very audacious. Somewhere this hot, somewhere this small, frankly, shouldn't really be able to attract the entire world. But they said they were going to do it, and they have, and they are. And so it's really the backdrop of Dubai, yes, the UAE, yes, the Middle East, to help people themselves, individuals, businesses, understand that they can also become whatever they want to become as well, right? And so you localizing this actually brings to life more what's in my mind when I do these episodes than actually what it is in English. Maybe in English I'd make it a lot longer. But going back to
your advice for teams, for leaders, for decision makers, executives, how do you bring across to them the importance, and what are the things you highlight to say, if you don't know this, you're going to lose a deal. If you don't know this, you may go out of business. If you don't know this, you're not going to be received properly by the society, by your clients.
So for sure there are let's say, the obvious things, and it's not about stating the obvious, but it's always good to have that reminder. Ensuring the respectful, modest appearance and presence within the workplace.
Okay. Is that changing?
It is changing, yes.
Okay.
It was something that wasn't easily accepted very much at the beginning, but now this is something considered like quite important. Whoever is there into a professional workplace is expected for sure to dress professionally and dress modestly, not necessarily covering the whole body, but in a way that maintains the professional attire and appearance. The way of treating each other, given complete, full importance, respect, and appreciation to the not just the cultural differences, but even the value that anyone from a different background would bring. The times that are quite important and they are non-negotiables. That's something, of course, the workload and the volume of business would very much influence, but it's very wise to ensure that there is enough time for people just to do the prayer in the middle of the busy day. I remember that was something that brought up some difficult conversations, that the workload doesn't even allow for the staff or the team members to just go for the prayer time for even like 5 to 10 minutes.
And is that when you were working for Western companies?
It happened in different places.
Okay.
Because yes, it's a very busy environment and it's a high achieving one, and that comes with so much to be done within a workday. But because these are the principles of the religions, the prayer time is quite important. So that's something to be definitely given the time and the respect it deserves. This is, let's say, on the very first layer.
Okay.
Then comes the deeper cultural work that involves how contracts, agreements, deals are being done.
Okay.
There's always that space and room for understanding, for amicable resolution of any dispute. The opportunity for parties to come together with a solution that would save everyone's reputation.
And you're saying these should be written into the fabric of a contract, of an agreement?
Yes,
Okay.
at least woven in within the language. For example, if something went wrong, some contracts, they go quite rigid. That we allow, for example, 30 to 45 days for this, if not resolved, to court or to legislation body they choose. But because the cultural system has its own council of resolving disputes that is outside the court, this has always been headed and led by the seniors of companies, families, communities. Things could be resolved outside the court. And that may take a bit of time, but it would save everyone so much of reputation, cost, risk, if it's allowed and given the space to happen.
And so saying that, so I studied law, so I have a pretty good legal background in terms of contracts, disputes, at least from an academic perspective. How well does English law mesh with Arabic law, Islamic law?
That's a big question. English law.
And I ask that because of what you said in terms of the rigidity, especially when things go wrong. Contracts, I remember my lecturer used to say, really, contracts are there for when things don't go according to plan. And there is a rigidity that does almost immediately, in many instances, fall in to place and come into play when things go wrong. But it doesn't sound like that is, it almost sounds like from a Middle Eastern Arabic perspective, when things go wrong, that opens a door for flexibility. Is that right?
So the English law, yes, it's very well defined. It has its precedents, and it's quite clear to follow and apply. Yes. While the law over here is quite connected and intertwined into the Islamic and Sharia principles, foundations, and definitions, even if it's not clearly stating this law that it's, for example, this is Sharia law or Islamic law, but it's been inspired by it. Now, one of the most important foundations in the Arabic culture that is originating from the Islamic background behind it is to allow for room for amicable dispute resolution. And that, in some parts of the Middle East, has actually a stronger authority than the legal system in some parts. To an extent that it's known that a court could only intervene after the head of the community, the head of the society, the head of the tribe, or someone who's quite senior and respected, has declared that they could not resolve this. Okay, wow. You're allowed now to go to court. This is out of my control.
That's really powerful.
In some areas, it does go like that. And here, in this part of the world, there is the tendency to always direct things to be resolved amicably as much as possible before it gets into the court. Now, you coming from a legal background, you know that there is the legal system, the court, and there is the arbitration. The arbitration is the equivalent of this, has a very similar concept to it, but the aim eventually is to avoid, to get into a legal dispute. Because, okay, party A, party B, they didn't agree, we go to court. Party A won. They won the case, they got the compensation, or they've been rewarded. Okay, fair enough. But they lost so much with that. They lost the opportunity to be part of this ecosystem again, because we've seen how things been handled when they gone wrong. There wasn't a room to allow for this to be settled amicably. Both parties didn't show the flexibility and the understanding that would weather the challenges any business would face. It's never ideal. Anything could happen at any time. So that level of maturity, if it's not being demonstrated in those hard times and straight away we're into court, that might be a very interim win, but on the longer term, it's a loss.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think you're right. I think as we speak about the non-obvious aspects of Middle Eastern culture in business, I think that's one that would definitely not be well known, well understood by many people outside of the region. Are there any others that you would highlight?
Yes, and that's an important one. I started writing about that in one of the newsletters because, as we said, it's not a written rule book, and only a professional would get to learn these things by practice, which is quite risky. when things go wrong, it's strongly recommended and wise to contain the situation and resolve it in a language that allows for solutions and options to maintain the reputation of the other party. Because if the other party is coming from a place where they really care so much to protect the reputation, to protect the name, their aim and their concern is not to win the legal case. Their aim and concern is to protect the larger, the bigger interest, because he would be involved in several businesses associated with different families and so many stakeholders. It's such a big job to protect all of that. So if two parties came into a conflict and one of them is just going to call out everything that's gone wrong, this has gone wrong, you violated this didn't happen as it should be. Legally speaking, it's correct. Absolutely nothing wrong, and they have all the right to do that. But culturally and reputationally, it's damaging on the longer term. It's very damaging. So things should be taken very much with wisdom, with patience, with the aim to contain and to resolve and to ensure everyone is fairly treated, compensated, but to protect the presence, the seniority, the face, the honor, because these things are deeply rooted. They cannot be told, you're exposing my reputation, you're damaging my image. These things are not said because they're so foundational that they, as we said, the unwritten rulebook. But for someone who doesn't know that, when things go this way, again, legally speaking, nothing wrong with that. But culturally speaking, it's a loss on the longer term.
I think that's so important to know. From everything that you've said, Middle Eastern culture is very much a long-term thinking culture. But there's also the expectation to think very circumspectly as well. You have to think about the people around you, the people that will be affected, the other businesses that will be affected, the relationship that will be affected by your actions, especially when things go wrong. And so, yeah, I think that's really important to know, because if you have a business here, even if you have a career here, there are so many interconnections and links across the region that you need to be aware of these things. So you've written about luxury. This region is very well known for being a very luxurious place. High quality, lovely designs, lovely fashion as well, lots of wealth, but in a very tasteful way. What are some of the differences between Western luxury and Middle Eastern luxury?
So the Western luxury is very well known, defined, and visible. It's known straight away from the designer name of the brand, the outlet. It's known. And it's never to be mistaken. Whenever you want it, you know where you're going to find it. Over here, luxury is a very private, inviting experience that is associated with respect and unique experience to whoever wants to experience luxury. I'll take an example of fashion. The way a new design or a new line of dresses, for example, is being advertised is through a very huge show and press and media, and it's going to be something that quite visible. But over here, it may go in a different way. It's going to be an experience that is curated for a small group who would get to first access to see this and get to try and comment on and feel how this project is, and then to be customized, altered to their liking. The concept of having that level of exclusivity, whether in design, whether in availability, and associating that with having an entire experience that indulges all factors of fine hospitality with it. So it's not just a closed show. It's more than that. It's an experience to really have a look with this within a very close group that would consult and advise and talk with each other before a decision is being made.
And is that the respect and regard and honor that is sort of given to wealthy people? Is that why it's seen as luxurious?
So it goes to a meaning that is beyond that. So it's not just the wealth that defines it, but it's the respect of the cultural norms that, for example, when it comes to women, they would want to see the designs that are catered to them with their own setting, a safe setting where they could talk and see how this could be worn, when is this appropriate for that. And it's curating a meaningful, luxurious experience that speaks elegance, that speaks respect, and that speaks understanding of the fine details, from the smell to the coffee to the whole design of the place. This is not, of course, the normal way of doing this all the time, but for those brands or those designers who want to cater to this level of clientele, that experience would go very curated and special for a very special group of clients who would have the access to this.
Thank you for that. No, it's very good to understand what luxury means and is over here, but also the reason for that, as you've just explained. Very quickly, if you are a founder or a professional moving around the GCC, setting up businesses, or maybe you travel around working, maybe you're moving companies in the job that you have, what are some of the differences between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, between the UAE and Oman, Qatar? Help us to understand some of those.
So I'll first begin to say that the GCC is a big, cohesive community. Not just location-wise, but even from the roots, the families, and it's very interconnected. That said, the differences, the subtle differences, if I may say, are felt rather than said. So I'll start here with the UAE. Dubai, quite cosmopolitan, very inviting, and it feels like the whole world is having a bit of it over here, wherever you go. Head to other Emirates. Abu Dhabi holds that Arabic taste to it, and the position of it being the capital, that's something that is felt over there.
Definitely.
Yeah. In Sharjah, you get to see the Islamic presence, the number of mosques, the way the streets are named. It's how the city is designed. And Ajman, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, I got the pleasure of seeing them all. And yes, each one has its own beautiful identity. They're not identical, but they're all have so much in common. They are the up and coming. A lot of development is happening while they still preserve the beautiful original stories they have. So there are still those areas that could be a very nice escape from the very active life.
Definitely.
To that part which is still calm, beautiful. So you could have a bit of a recharge.
A weekend in Ras Al Khaimah is
ideal.
the best place to go.
Yeah. Saudi. Now that's a place close to my heart. Beautiful family memories. Saudi is where the origin of the Arabic language, the Arabic culture, simply because it's where everything from the beginning of Islam has started. So they preserve that. The identity, the cultural identity over there is quite prevailing. And that is something that you feel when you go to different parts, even though there is an extra level of flexibility if you go to the cities that are by the shore, like here, Jeddah or Dammam, the East Coast and the West Coast. It's very, very large, and there's so much in common. But the more you roam around there, the more you begin to feel that the dialect may differ a bit from one part of to the other, from the center to the north to the south. The food, the customs, the traditions, it's beautifully varied. So it's a place that is very much worth exploring, especially with everything happening now. Quite of a vibrant place, and the future there is very promising. Qatar made such a remarkable job. That small but mighty nation that hosted the FIFA, it reintroduced how global scale events could happen. So that was like a turning point. It became an attraction for a lot of global businesses, sports-based, of course. That's very much understandable. But still, you feel it. The Arabic identity is felt. It's there. The same applies to the rest of the GCC. And overall, it's a place that celebrates safety, celebrates the visionary ambition to make it a great place for people to live, for economy to flourish, and for dreams to come true. And it's a living miracle. That part that was desert for a very long time is now the center of attention. So we don't get to see such a chance every once in a while. It could never happen even in a generation or a decade. But the opportunity happening now is just inviting for everyone to be part of it and shape the future.
As a final question, what is one word or phrase that you would use to describe the future of the Gulf region?
Unprecedentedly promising. It's very promising in a way that did not happen before. And it has all the factors to make it an epic, successful, solid future. And we are seeing the signs of this. And what an amazing time to be alive, to see all of this happening and enjoy the beauty of sharing the success with everyone who chooses to be part of this. And they're more than welcome. And we're here to have them with open arms, to help them win big. That's something that will bring so much joy to our people.
Oh, Taqua Malik, thank you so much for coming today. I feel like you've given us just a window really into
the culture in the Middle East. There's so much that you'll definitely have to come back so that we can explore further.
Thank you.
But I think even from what you have said, so many professionals, so many founders, so many businesses listening to you are able to go a lot further, are able to do a lot more, and to be in a position where they can be more successful. And so I can only say thank you.
You're
and
very
hope that we can
welcome.
continue the conversation.
Thank you so much, Richard. It was
Thank you very
beautiful to be here. Much appreciated. And thank you so much for the time.